Hey everyone, welcome to Strange Stories, where we explore near-death experiences and supernatural stories from people who've had a glimpse of the other side. If you enjoy our content, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel. Without further ado, let's get to the story of the day. This was written barely a few months after the event. It is available on my blog. I was still recovering from serious brain surgery and struggling to put into words what I'd gone through. As I was wheeled into the operating room, I gave the surgeon a high five and told him, "You'll be a rock star." Talking and hospital activity faded as I drifted off to sleep. Then, all of a sudden, I was awake, but I wasn't in the hospital. This was not my world. Everything around me was breathtakingly lovely. The hues were so vibrant, and they appeared to emit light. As I began to take in what I was seeing, I realized I was sitting on what appeared to be a massive wing. It was the most gorgeous thing I'd ever seen, brilliant and vivid. The light was so brilliant that it should have blinded me, but it had no effect on my eyes. My vision was sharp at the time. Even the smallest detail was evident to me. The wing was auburn, gold, and eventually brown. The hue startled me for some reason. I don't recall ever considering it, but I suppose I assumed angels to be white or bright gold because of television. I was interested by the material used to make the wing because it was something I'd never seen before. It had the appearance of melted metal, but it was half translucent, like a gemstone, and exceedingly light. The wing was strong, as if it were made of solid matter rather than particles. I could see amber-colored veins going through it, similar to marble veins. I reached down to feel the wing, but I couldn't feel anything. I'm not sure if I saw my hand when I reached down. Everything was otherworldly, but it felt like home in an unfathomable manner. There was an overwhelming feeling of love that I'd never thought existed before. I knew it was God's love, yet it was far more strong than I could have anticipated. The affection was calming, comfortable, and enticing. It was all-encompassing and overwhelming, lifting me up with joy and hope. There was no despair or dread. I could spend an eternity just taking in the beauty, love, and indescribable amazement all around me. I recall feeling as if everything I had done wrong in my life had never happened. I hadn't realized how much those memories had weighed on me until that moment. Today, when I read about the visions men in the Bible saw, I cry because I know what they saw and how difficult it is to convey. There was no pain, only calm, joy, and contentment. I realized I was in a different dimension than I had previously thought. I knew I wasn't in my body or on Earth anymore. Outside of the magnificent light of the creature that embraced me, there was nothing. But I had a feeling there was a lot more out there. I felt completely secure. There was no anxiety. I'm certain an angel was holding me. I remembered my family, whom I had abandoned. But I wasn't offended or concerned about them. I knew they'd be taken care of while I was gone, so I just thought about them briefly. There was a very faint sound, like air or water rushing far away in the distance. I began to try to organize my surroundings. The source of the love was to my right, just above my shoulder. Peace, joy, and comfort could all be found to my lower left. These emotions arose as a result of love. I'm not sure what the importance of where things were was, whether they were tied to the person that held me or anything else. My thoughts returned to the world from which I had emerged. I knew I was done with the life I'd lived there, and it seemed like such a short time had passed. It wasn't as real as where I was now, but I knew that this dimension was somehow hidden from those who lived in the world. But I knew I needed the time in the world. It was there that we recognized we had an existential desire for our Creator. Through the all-powerful Spirit of Christ, we chose the one true life that exists. God's strength and love flooded everything with eternal truth that has always existed and will always exist. This was the glory. This was called holiness. There was a distinct divide between humans in this place. God had reached down to bring man here. These were some of the things I simply knew. I felt a tingle in the lower half of my left leg at that point. I had a fleeting impression that the surgeon must be working on something that touched that region of my body, which is unusual given that I was not in the hospital. This, I suppose, was a parallel dimension to the one we're currently inhabiting. I looked down as a result of the sensation. I noticed what seemed like human silhouettes. Their bodies were dark, and I couldn't make out any details on their faces. They weren't as substantial as the angels. They were plainly made of particles, predominantly black, with a few light particles thrown in for good measure. Like the wing, each silhouette had a bright and wonderful glow around it. They seemed to be a part of both worlds to me. There were numerous silhouettes. They moved and communicated to one another. Although I couldn't hear them, I did see their gestures and mouths move as they moved to the side. "The crowd is petitioning for you," said a voice. Another element that was tough for me to convey was the voice. It was male, very strong and powerful, but soft and full of love. I recalled thinking, I could stay here forever and just experience this joy, beauty, and love. I felt excited and anticipatory. Then I returned my attention to the silhouettes of people. I was both surprised and moved that so many of them were praying for me. "The petition is granted," said the voice again. I became aware of my bodily body the following instant. I hadn't realized it before, but I hadn't felt my physical body save for a tingle in my lower leg during the event. I could hear women's voices. I was in the hospital's recovery room. The hues were faded, but the sensations of love, serenity, and joy lingered like a distant memory. I struggled hard to keep those feelings. I held back my tears. I wasn't sure if I wanted to come back here. I yearned to be back in that wonderful spot, surrounded by love, serenity, and joy. I was torn between two options, but I knew from the word said that it had already been chosen where I belonged. I began to talk and continued to talk about how I was in heaven for at least several days. "No, dear, you're at a medical center," the staff said. "We're not letting you go to heaven today," I was told constantly. "You're going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine." As I lay there, I could hear the nurses conversing among themselves, and I felt as if I were caught between two universes. They murmured, "She keeps talking about going to heaven." When I realized I was back in the physical world, I instantly attempted moving my legs and arms to determine if the procedure had caused any damage. Everything went flawlessly, and I was overjoyed. I realized then that I was seeing a miracle, being alive and whole. The surgeons had done a miraculous job, but I knew that God had restored my life in direct response to the prayers that had been made for me. It wasn't until later that I realized how many people had participated in that prayer effort. As it turned out, it was a multitude. It is beyond words how many people prayed for my life. That thought still causes me to cry. I believe what I witnessed was a gift. I noticed a stark contrast between that universe and this one. It was life-changing to be able to see everybody so clearly. As I lay on my bed recovering, I looked out my window for the first time and realized how terribly wrecked God's beautiful planet was. I was overcome with grief at how shattered this once beautiful world has become. It is now a shadow of what it was when it was established. I'm not sure how I knew, but I did, and that made me sad. For whatever reason, I had been granted a glimpse of glory, and the concept of living this existence apart from the source of life and love seems ridiculous to me. I'm sure there are naysayers who would argue that the adverse effects of anesthesia or individuals dreaming during operation. But I don't care. I saw what you saw. The encounter had a significant impact on me. My current situation strikes me as novel, something that, in my opinion, could not have been planned. Every morning, I'm filled with a new and overwhelming gratitude. Things that used to bother me no longer bother me. People are important. Life is important. Love matters. Knowing and speaking up for the truth is important. I am always aware of the other dimension, but in a more personal way than I was previously aware of as faith. Almost every day, my mind transports me back to that location. The sharp awareness of that other dimension has faded with time, and I need to reflect, contemplate, and recollect. I never want to lose that. I'm still seeing things differently. After my operation, I became aware of several things that I was previously unaware of. People seem oddly oblivious and uninterested in what is going on around them, for example. People appear to be disconnected from the natural world. It's as if they're preoccupied with insignificant, pointless matters. I'm aware that the world is coming to an end. Fortunately, I'm not alone in this realization. Fortunately, I'm not terrified of death. An unusual scenario occurred when a friend came to see me after I'd just come home, almost as confirmation to me of all I'd seen. She brought me a miniature fairy statue. The fairy had 2 embellished holes in its wings, and they were just where my angel had the spot on his wing. She bought it because it would remind me of the angel, I reasoned in my still fuzzy mind. She had no notion that the angel had a blemish on its wing, of course, but it seemed to me that everyone knew exactly what he looked like. I only recently relayed that anecdote to a buddy. She couldn't believe I hadn't informed her sooner. But every morning, I glance at that fairy, which is still sitting beside my bed, and it reminds me. This is my story of what I saw and felt. I've thought, prayed, and wondered why I was led to see what I did. I don't understand why. I just know that I witnessed something that few people had the opportunity to witness. I'm telling you this story because it's true. My prayer is that God would use it to benefit and encourage others. There's life beyond what we can see. We learn in church that the soul is immortal and separate from the body. That is a more tangible reality to me today than it has ever been, and when the time comes for me to return to that place and beyond, I will gladly accept it. But, in His infinite wisdom, God has kept me here on earth for the time being. Every morning, I ask for His strength to help me live this day well. I am reminded of Jesus' conversation with Thomas in John chapter 20, verse 29. Because you have seen me, you have believed. Happy are those who have not seen and yet have believed.